Hello. So, I am just going to. Can we hear me? Can we hear me? Yes, okay. Alright, so, hello. Welcome. Just inviting in some presents. I'm gonna wait a few minutes before we get started, see if anybody hops on with us. If not, that's okay. And if you're watching the replay, hi, comment replay. Happy Virgo new moon. It's such a beautiful day. Just gonna get some things set up on the back end here. Okay, I'm gonna give it 2 more minutes and then we're gonna get started. Grab yourself a drink. This is gonna be such a great topic episode today. Just like a little intro. This is all information that I really wish would have been shared with me when I was younger, like a long time ago. So I'm excited to be able to share it with you and to utilize this information together for our up level. I am gonna have some prompts, and they probably won't. Excuse me. I don't have anywhere to put them. Like, I'll put them in the comments. But I'm also gonna put them under the post. So if you rewatch this post, you'll have them. I'm gonna put them now, actually, while we're getting set up. These are all questions from a book called Rich as Fuck by Amanda Frances. And we're gonna go into why I'm sharing these specific questions with you. So let me just. Ooh, I'm so excited. This is gonna be such a good topic. I've really wanted to talk about this for a long time. And recently I've been going through a lot of money initiations, and I've always been someone who like has a good relationship with money, right? But I didn't really realize like why or how. And so now I do realize why and how. And I'm really excited to just like share that with you. All right, so we're gonna get started. Hello to anyone who is new to the group. If you're watching the replay, like I said, comment replay in the comments. Love to see that you guys are watching replays. And if you're new to the group, hello, welcome. This is our money workshop masterclass. It's a 3-day series, and I am your host, Magical Mads. I am a online entrepreneur from Pennsylvania. I grew up mostly in Pennsylvania, but I was actually born in Wyoming. I had a bit of an interesting childhood growing up, and we weren't by any means rich. But there were a lot of situations where we were tested in our knowing of our value. And this happened, I'm gonna turn off this music. This happened as a result of us not knowing our value. And so the universe was like, hey, like, this is what we're learning. This is the tools, right? So, I was never rich. We never had a lot of things. Actually, we were given a lot of things, but it was like we were given those things because we didn't feel like we could have those things ourselves. But we knew we were, like, we wanted them, right? And then the idea of like sustaining them and them actually being ours, as a family, I'm speaking, was not really there. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure I'll touch on my story and my journey a little bit more throughout this. But first, I just want to start by taking a few deep breaths. Really just anchoring into your body. And the goal of today's workshop is to help us reintegrate money, the concept of money, to the heart, to our passion, to our joy, rather than to something that we need to survive. Because a lot of us, myself included, I was doing this for a really long time, we walk around and we have these conceptions about money, and we think we need money to survive. And yes, in this society, having money really helps with that. But when we link money to survival, which is the root chakra, we actually limit our ability to utilize money to its full potential. It's the same with relationships. When you feel like you need a relationship to survive, you limit the relationship from actually serving you how you really want it to. Got that molecular hydrogen. Okay. So today's topic is, first of all, I want to talk about abundance really quick. So I touched on this in the podcast episode this week, but really what abundance is not something that you don't have. Abundance is literally everything, and you always have it. It's an energy that you tap into. Same as money. We're going to go into that. But abundance is something that you continuously have, right? You have an abundance of lack, maybe. You have an abundance of water, whatever kind of water you have. You have an abundance of your voice. You have an abundance of breath. You have an abundance of whatever. The only way that that becomes limited is if we, with our minds, limit it. If we say, oh, I don't have enough water, we don't have enough water. Oh, I don't have enough whatever, it becomes limited. But that isn't the lack of abundance. Abundance is still there. It's just an abundance of not enough. You see how that works? There's always abundance. Abundance is always available to you. It's just about what kind of abundance you're choosing to tap into. So when we come from this, not, and I have my phone, I just have like some notes written, but it's not like planned out really. I just wanted to say that in case you see me looking over here, like I'm just looking at my phone for my notes. So when we have not this energy of not enough, it's because we're choosing to live in that mind state. And generally, we choose to live on that in that mind state based on the conditions externally, based on society, based on the past. So we think, oh, I never had enough of that in the past, so like I'll never be able to create enough of that. Oh, I didn't have enough love growing up, so I'll never have enough love. Like no one will be able to ever give me enough like validation or love or appreciation or whatever it may be. Right, so we have these stories in our mind. And this is what the To Infinity and Beyond portal goes into, especially Story for Success and Managing the Mind. We go into like actually uncovering these stories in Stories for Success and then going into some of the common stories that a lot of us hold subconsciously without even realizing it. But the key here is you are the creator. You should already know this. I feel like you should already know this. You probably do already know this on some level. And you are the one who creates the stories in your mind. Your thoughts are not you, but you get to choose your thoughts. So when we live in this energy of not enough, oh, it's not enough, oh, it's too much, I'm too much, we live in this pendulum where we keep ourselves away from the stability that we're actually craving. Or we keep ourselves in lack, in an abundance, we keep ourselves stable in what we don't want. And this is all a result of what we're perpetuating in our minds, what we believe to be true. And beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking. And then the body holds on to them. The body, the cells, reciprocate what you feel and you think, what you feel. And this is what creates the world around you. The world around you is a projection of your own internal state. It's a reflection of your beliefs, of what you believe to be true. So when we say, oh, I don't have enough, oh, I'm living in lack, however that may come across for you, I'm broke. First of all, take that out of your vocabulary, okay? You're not broke. You're abundant in some way. There are things available to you in some way, but you have to believe that in order for your brain to actually see that. There's this thing in our brain called the reticular activating system, and it works with the law of attraction. It's like our internal version of the law of attraction. And what it does is it creates more of what you believe in, of what you think about. So if you can consciously shift what you think about, what you believe, what you feel to be true, and give yourself proof of that internally, it will manifest externally. Money is not some elusive thing that is hard to get. But if you believe that, it will be that. If you believe something is hard, it will always be hard. If you believe something is whatever, it will always be that way. So why are you broke? Why are you allowing yourself to feel like you're broke? Why are you allowing those thoughts into your realm? Why are you even considering that to be a possible reality for you? Likely it has to do with your standards, your self-worth, what you believe to be possible, and how you feel about yourself, which is tied to your self-worth. I don't know why I'm sniffling. I just started happening. Like right now. We all have a relationship with every single thing in our life. We have a relationship with ourselves. That's the basis for the relationship of everything. We have a relationship with water. We have a relationship with food. We have a relationship with TV. We have a relationship with social media, with our friends, with our family. Like, we have a relationship with everything. Everything is a relationship. We have a relationship with our beliefs, our ability to discern whether or not we can control our beliefs. And pro tip, you can. It's just based on what you allow yourself to perpetuate by way of what you allow yourself to think about, by what you allow yourself to be true. So when you know that your relationship energetically with something is what creates the physical relationship, you'll begin to understand that you actually are in control by way of what you choose, by way of what you determine to be true, by way of how you decide to show up with that person, with that place, with that thing. We have a relationship to places too. What you think about the places, what you feel about the places, that's an indication of your relationship with it. Your emotions are the guides to show you where you're at energetically with all the things around you, even with yourself. And everything is an invitation, inviting you in to how you can show up to better take care of yourself, to have a better relationship with life, to be more in control of your life. The key to detachment, to having no control, is knowing your worth, knowing your value, and saying, this is what I'm worth. This is what I know to be true about myself. Billionaires, millionaires, all of them, they don't question whether or not they're worth the amount of money they make. They know that that's the amount of money that they're worth, if not more, right? Making that amount of money was inevitable for them because they decided it in their mind, because they decided this is what my relationship with money is like. So when we have these situations in the physical where we don't have money, or we are struggling, or we find ourselves continuously struggling, this was me for the longest time. I was like always struggling. Like, no matter how much money I had, no matter how many like good people were around me, no matter what, I was always struggling internally. And this is because I thought I had to struggle in order to be valuable. And that's all that money is. Money is really just an indication of value. So what are you giving value to in your life? What are you allowing to be true for you? So when it comes to money, it's like, okay, so I'm going to give the example of, I always had to struggle. I thought I always had to struggle. That's because when I grew up, I saw people only struggling, and they would only get help from like my grandparents or whatever when they were struggling, when things were going bad. When things were going good, it was like, oh, you can just go be independent. So I learned that that's how you live with life. That's how you get attention. That's how you are able to like receive help. You have to do something. You have to sacrifice something. You have to sacrifice your well-being, is really what I learned. And a lot of us, we tie sacrificing our well-being to overworking our bodies. So for a long time, I thought I had to just be like, do everything, be on my feet all the time. This ended me up in like a lot of service positions that I hated. I was great with people, great at talking to people, and I loved that. But it was like my body wasn't being prioritized, because I thought that in order to receive what I wanted, I had to sacrifice my body. These are all just stories that my subconscious mind believed because it was shown it so many times. But the thing about this is, when you decide to change what you believe, Your subconscious mind starts seeing things differently. You start to receive things differently. Even the same situations, you see them differently. This is abundance. Your perception, your point of view is your abundance. You get to choose what abundance means to you. You get to decide, I want to be infinitely abundant. You get to decide, this is what I'm going to give for that abundance. And it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. You can just be yourself and make money. You can just get paid to exist. There are so many options available to you. And once you decide that you want something, like fully decide. I'm not talking like, oh, I could do that. No, like I'm doing that. There's no questions asked about it. That is the only outcome. You'd be surprised how things come to you and how quickly they come too. But when you entertain the stories and the narratives of like, oh, I can't have that yet, like, or like, this is a big one for me. When I was younger, I felt like I had to kind of like dim my light a little bit because my brother didn't get as much praise as I did. And so like I felt like I had to like make myself not shine as bright so he could get more praise. So like it was like I have to make myself small in order to be loved, in order to keep the peace. So like if there's a situation in your life where like, I don't know, like your parents aren't making as much money, like you want to make more money than your parents, but you're afraid of how they would perceive that. One, you're outsourcing validation, and that says that's an area to work on. And two, you're by doing that, by outsourcing that validation, you're giving your power away to their stories, to what they believe to be possible for you, for themselves, really. You get to make as much fucking money as you want. I don't care what's going on in your reality. I don't care how much like resistance you have. Like as long as you decide, you commit yourself to it and you take action, trifecta, you're good. You're gonna get it. Inevitable. It's inevitable. But you have to really believe in yourself and know that you are worth that. You are worth having that. I used to have the worst relationships in the world. Like, in the world. I was always treated like shit. They would always cheat on me. They always, like, never respected my time or anything like that. And what I learned is because I wasn't doing those things for myself, one. And two, that's what I thought I had to accept from a relationship. I thought that I had to accept the bare minimum. And the fact that that was my bare minimum showed me where my worth was at. What I thought I was valuable of. And my value was really tied to keeping the peace, to pleasing everyone, to making everything perfect and happy, to being the savior. But the truth is, you're going to be the villain sometimes. You're going to be the person who people are jealous of sometimes. You have to be okay with that if you want to make a lot of money. You have to be okay with being isolated. And that doesn't mean that you don't get to see your friends and talk to your friends and the same people even like that you're with right now. Like you probably will cut off some people because a lot of them might not, or they'll just naturally, like you'll naturally create space because they won't meet the standard of your new reality. But true abundance is being able to hold that frequency no matter who's watching, because you don't care about their validation, because you're validated from within. Because you know, this is my story. This is the story I chose, and you literally have no say here. When you can come from that personal power, your subconscious mind works for you. People start to come into your reality that want to help you and support you in those new ideas that you're having. And your life just immensely shifts because you know your value. You know what you're worth. You get to choose what your relationship with life is like. You get to choose what your story with money is like. But first, you have to identify the stories that you're currently telling in order to actually see what needs to shift. And that's what we go into in Stories for Success. Just like completely allowing you to see the stories, and I hold space for you, and we have the group chat, so if you have anything that like really comes up and you need space to be held, it's there for you. But the stories, they only exist because you gave them power, because you said, oh, this is true, oh, this is what is right, whatever your reasoning is, because you gave it that power. So what if instead you started to give your power to things that actually made you happy? Like, oh yeah, I am a millionaire. Oh yeah, I am making a shit ton of money this month. Oh yeah, I do get to be financially supported too. Regardless of the noise, regardless of what's going on in your reality, regardless of anything. Your relationship with money has nothing to do with anybody else. Your relationship with yourself has nothing to do with anybody else. But when you shift those relationships, everything around you changes too. Because you decided, I'm worth more. You have to decide, this is what I want, and I'm allowed to have it. No conditions. But the stories, they will pop up, which is why it's helpful to know how to neutralize them and alchemize them into stories that you actually want to be telling. So today, what I really want to bring focus to is, what stories are you telling? What version of you are you currently living in? Are you living in the broke version of you? Because broke is not a dollar sign amount. Broke is a mindset. I have been down bad, like with money, more times than I can count. And for the earlier periods of my life, I would be like, oh, I'm broke. Oh, I'm broke. And it would make me feel even worse about myself. When I started making more money than I had ever made before, you know what that was a result of? Me knowing that even when I don't have money, I'm still rich as fuck. Because being rich is not a dollar amount to me. Being rich is being able to decide consciously what I want, what I like, what I don't like. To me, that's what abundance is. And the money is a reflection of that. To me, abundance is knowing my worth, knowing my value, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes. Knowing that I can create anything I desire. Knowing that I'm worth the best. Because I know that that's where money comes from. And the reason that I share this is because there were times where I would get so much money, but I couldn't hold it. I couldn't sustain it. Because I didn't have the worth built into my nervous system of knowing, oh, I'm actually worthy of having this. Oh, I'm actually worthy of spending this. Oh, I'm actually worthy of saving this. Oh, I'm actually worthy of investing, whatever it may be. And so money would literally like fly off of me because we weren't an energetic match. So if you want to have money, if you want to have anything, you want to keep it, you want to sustain it, you want to be friends with it, you got to be friends with it. You got to talk to it. You got to have conversations with it. You got to have like a relationship with it. What's your relationship with money like? And how is that reflected in who you're embodying right now? How is that reflected in your identity right now? And how much of your identity is reliant on being broke, on being in the victim mentality, on needing people to save you? How many of your relationships are only relationships in your life because they validate that identity of needing someone to provide for you? How can you learn to shift those relationships in your life so that you're no longer dependent on them to be your source of whatever? Of validation, of love, of comfort. How can you start building that for yourself? This is how you build wealth. And wealth knows when to say no. Wealth knows how to replicate itself. Because you can get money. Getting money is like really not that hard, especially if you're willing to sacrifice a lot for it. Like, it's really not that hard. But when you have standards, it's not that hard to get money either. But sometimes we think it is because we're like, oh, can I really do that? Am I really worth that? Can I really just say that that's how I want it and that's how I get it? And this is a reflection of our relationship with sex as well. Everything's a reflection of each other. But you really do just get to say, I want it, so I get it. I have the desire, so it's mine. The desire is yours, right? The end result is yours. It's based on what you believe and the stories you attach to that desire. So you want a lot of money. Cool. How do you feel about actually having a lot of money? Who did you think you would become with that money? Do you have any fears around who you think you'd become? Are you worried about what people would think about you? Do you feel like you would become this like rich, snobby person? Money doesn't change you, it amplifies who you really are. So if you have a fear that you're gonna become this like rich, snobby person, likely it's because you're either not embodying that energy already, or you don't have self-control. And self-control is one of the biggest forms of abundance. Money goes to people who have self-control. Self-control is knowing your worth. It's knowing when to say no. It's knowing when to say yes. It's knowing when something is for you. It's knowing that you can create it. Because you took the time to sit down and say, oh, yeah, that's a good plan. And you believed in it. Believing in yourself is self-control. Persistence in what you want, regardless of what's being shown to you in the external, is self-control. We want this physical thing, right? But in order to actually sustain it, in order to actually like get it on autopilot, we have to allow ourselves to rewrite the relationship with self, of what we feel worthy of what we believe to be possible. And that doesn't come overnight, especially if you have people around you that don't fully support you stepping into your most aligned energy signature. Especially if you have people around you that benefit from you being small. But that's not their fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just an invitation, an initiation for you to step up, show out, and not give a fuck even more. People who have a lot of money, they don't really give any fucks. They're like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, duh, of course. How can you start to embody that energy? And maybe you can't do it with money right away, but start somewhere. And there's probably something in your life where it's like already there for you. Like water. We don't really, I mean, in the US anyway, we don't really think about like, oh, do I have water today? Like, of course I have water today. Of course I do. How can you start to have that relationship with money? For some people, it's coffee. It's like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to go get my coffee. Of course money's going to come to me. Like, what? Duh. That's the level of confidence you have to have. No doubts, no fears. And it's okay if you say those things and doubts and fears come up, because that's an invitation for you to build your willpower, build your staying power, and build your persistence, which is going to help you in so many other areas of your life. It's going to help you in sustaining that money. It's okay to be where you're at. It's okay to be broke. It's okay to feel broke. But you have to know that you're the one that changes that. Nobody else is going to change that. Someone coming in your life and giving you money is not going to change the fact that you still feel broke. A lot of the time we'll be like, oh, I want more money. And then someone will offer us money like unexpectedly. And we'll be like, oh, no, I can't accept that. But you just said that okay, so obviously you don't, right? So how are your actions aligning with what you're saying too? Are you holding yourself accountable by the way you're moving? This thing, this money, this whatever that you want, it's an energy. And as soon as you start to embody it, as soon as you start to say, oh, I have a good relationship with that thing. Oh, that is just natural. Oh, yeah, it always comes to me. It's always going to be there. There are standards that you have for your life that you're like, oh, yeah, of course that's there. Like a house. Oh, of course I have somewhere to live. That's because you decided that was a non-negotiable for you. So what's a non-negotiable for you? Can you hold that as being consistent in your reality? Because you decide. You decide whether or not you're ready for something. You're the one who decides whether or not something stays or goes. I'm going to give you this example. For the longest time, since I was 11, 10 years of this, okay? 10 years. I decided, oh, yeah, weed is always going to be there. Always. I always have access to it. I can always get it. I always have money to get it. If I don't have money, I'm going to find a way to get it. That's addiction energy, right? But when you channel it towards your desires, and even then, like, Mary I wasn't addicted to her. Like, I just knew that she was helping me do something. So we had a good relationship, right? I want to say that. But you don't have to justify either. Like, I wasn't justifying that to anyone. I was just like, oh yeah, duh. This is helping me, duh. And it was because I decided, yeah, non-negotiable. And I will say that relationship was based on like me having to do things that I didn't want. So I no longer have that same relationship with Mary, but if it's there, I mean, I can always get it, you know, like that is still true, very much true. It's just I'm not always going to reach out. It's more like it comes to me now. But that's a result of me building that relationship, of working with that thing, of knowing what's good for me, working with my own personal relationship. Right? So if you need money for a certain thing, it's okay to need that money. It's okay to say that you need that money. It's okay to say that you want that money. It's okay, even if it's not something you need, it's okay to be like, oh yeah, I want money so I can pay for that. I want more than enough money. I want more than enough money to even know what I'd do with it. You're allowed to say that thing. Now, can you make that a standard? And how do you make something a standard? You say, oh yeah, non-negotiable. It's always going to be there. Can you hold that belief in your body even without seeing it externally? I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Oh yeah, of course. Of course I made 15K this month. Of course I've made 15K for the past 8 months. Duh. That's something that you decide. And if you don't feel like you can decide on that much, that amount of money, bring it down a little bit. What's your energetic minimum? Maybe it's 2K. Maybe it's not even 2K. Maybe it's $800. Like, whatever it is for you, what do you feel like you can actually hold consistently? How much do you actually trust yourself with? And if you're not able to trust yourself with large amounts of money, it's likely because you don't trust yourself in other areas of your life, which is why you cultivate more self-control. You cultivate your relationship with yourself, and that reflects to you in the external by way of what you desire. So it could be money, it could be people taking care of you, it could be people inviting you places, it could be like free event, like whatever it is, right? Whatever makes you feel free, whatever makes you feel happy, whatever makes you feel supported. That's possible for you. But you have to decide, oh yeah, I'm worthy of that. That's my new standard. That's the level I'm holding. And you can increase it. You can increase it. But if you feel like you have to struggle, you might, this is what I did, this is why I'm speaking on it. You might think that you have to go, like if you get a lot of money, you might have to go down. Or like if you get a lot of money, you have to hold on to it and save it and never spend it. That's because you're addicted to the struggle. Okay. And we get addicted to the struggle because it gives us validation when we get out of the struggle. Part of our identity thrives in that role. So how can you make your identity either shift or not be reliant on those things? When you know that you're the creator and you know your worth and you know your value, you won't settle for things that are less than what you perceive your value to be. And you attach your identity to your value. So I'm going to give you another example. Because I was like the good girl, the savior, I was like, oh, the one who did everything so perfect. Because my mom had like, okay, so my dad was like an alcoholic and just like was always fucking shit up for her. So I felt like I had to be like the safe one, like the one that like did everything right, was like always good, blah, 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 blah. And so I got straight A's. This was my way. This is what I thought would identify me with those things. Keep that peace, right? I got straight A's. I took my driver's test the first time, got it. I never had any ticket. Like, I was so good in school. I never really got in trouble, like, blah, 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 right? That was because I linked my identity to those physical things by way of what I was basing my value on. When you know you're inherently worthy and you're inherently valuable, you don't need to base your value on anything. You don't need to say, oh, I'm valuable because I do this for my family. Oh, I'm valuable because I do this for this person. Oh, I'm valuable because I share this. Oh, I'm valuable because whatever. No, you know your value because you're fucking living, you're breathing, you have an abundant amount of value. And that's a relationship that you cultivate with yourself. And then from there, you're like, oh, since I have this amount of value, I'm like like I'm just inherently valuable. I'm worth this, whatever. And for me, I'm worth everything. I'm worth everything. Like my life and my knowings, like you are, and I want you to know this too for yourself. You are such a unique individual. No one could do it like you. No one. You have so much power, so much value. And I can't even portray that to you. Only you can feel that for yourself by tapping into your heart space, by knowing your value from the heart. Knowing that your value isn't determined by how much money you make, how much service you give, how many people you help, like whatever it may be. How good you do in school, who you are in your sorority, like it doesn't matter. Your value comes from within here, and you do those things based on how you feel in here. So if you're people pleasing, if you're doing those things, it's because you have not come to the realization that you get to source your own validation. And we go into sourcing this validation inside of managing the mind. And a little bit in it is done. But really, in order to actually show up in the identity that you want, you have to know your inherent value. You have to know that you're not dependent on anything else. The things that you do are for you only. And not because you're trying to prove something, not because you need to show your value, but because that's just how you move. You move from the heart space, right? Okay, so that's part one. And then part two is actually allowing yourself to identify your identity with your worth. So you feel worthy, you feel valuable. And now you're like, what am I valuable? Like, what is my price tag really? And for me, I feel like my price tag is unlimited, like exponential, like infinity. That's how I feel. That's the level of value that I've cultivated in myself. And so that's why walking with that value, people want to take care of me. People want to pay for things for me. People want to do things for me. I don't expect that. I mean, on some level, yes, it makes sense, but I'm not like, oh, I want this person to pay for me because I'm valuable. No. It's like, oh, I know my value. So naturally, it just makes sense that those things come into my reality because people see how I treat myself and they want in on the fun. They want in on love. They want in on whatever. When you walk from the heart, you're not reliant on needing something in order to feel okay. Because you know you can always create more, and what you're seeing externally doesn't actually necessarily always reflect how you feel about yourself. It could be like past versions of you. It could be like sometimes people project, right? It's about how you take the reflection. And we go deeper into this in managing the mind. It's more complex than I'm making it seem right here. And it does take work. I'm not gonna lie, it does take work. It takes persistence. But your ability to know your value and then identify, this is who I desire to be treated like. I desire to be treated like a wealthy woman. I desire to be treated like a princess, whatever it may be, right? and you actually treat yourself like that, people will naturally just show you like clockwork. Even the people that you don't expect or haven't treated you that way in the past, they'll begin to show you too, because they want to be in on that relationship. They want to be in on that juiciness, on that, whatever. And that's why it's up to you to also know how to set boundaries. So when we can attach to an identity and be fluid with the identity as well. Like when I say attach, like you're attaching but not really, right? Like it can change, it can shift. Do you trust yourself to shift in a positive direction? Right? When you can identify with an identity and then set boundaries around your worth in relation to your identity, oh my gosh, you're unstoppable. You're a force. That's why wealthy people have what they have, because they set boundaries, not only with themselves, but with the energy that they choose to partake in internally, who they allow in their reality, who they allow in their mental space, what conversations they allow, what they're energetically available for. The reason we get into lack situations, I did this for the longest fucking time. I would put myself in really shitty situations, one, as a means to prove myself, and two, because I thought that my mental thought or train of thought was like, oh yeah, I can handle that. Of course I can handle it. I can handle anything. Do I want to handle it? Do I feel worthy of actually receiving my desires rather than what is handed to me? Do I actually feel worthy of creating my own reality? Do I actually feel like I can do whatever I want? And what in me makes me feel like I want scenarios where I have to prove myself? What is my identity attached to that makes it feel like that's the only way I can get validation? When you allow yourself to go there and ask those questions and see what your identity is actually really attached to, you'd be surprised. A lot of the time it has to do with childhood. But you'd be surprised what your identity is actually linking itself to. And then once you realize it's linking itself to those things, and that's why you were constantly creating these situations and these scenarios, then you're like, oh, actually I know my worth and my value. I would rather choose that. I would rather see that. Yeah, now that's the only possible option. You can handle anything, right? You can handle anything the world throws at you. But what do you want to be thrown at you? Why would you want to receive bad things all the time? For me, it was like I felt like I had to prove my worth to everyone around me because I was looking for that outsourced validation. When I started validating myself from within, knowing my value from within, knowing I am worthy regardless of what I'm doing, regardless of who I'm being, regardless of my identity, I'm worthy just for being a freaking soul. And I got to know my cosmic identity a little more. It was like, oh, I don't have to prove myself. Oh, I actually do just get to expect the best, to see the best, to receive the best. And then that became a standard. So when you allow yourself to shift that identity by way of knowing your value, and you allow your value to reflect in your identity, you will change your world. But it starts with knowing that you create your world. You're the creator. You did everything. You're doing all of this just for you to learn. And yeah, you can get through those shitty situations, but they didn't have to happen like that. You can get through anything. You're powerful. But you don't need to show your power. You don't need to prove your power to anyone. The only reason you would feel like you need to do that is if you didn't really believe in it yourself. So what are you believing in? What do you believe is possible? Who do you believe that you are? What energy are you currently embodying, and is that really what you want to be embodying? How can you shift to being the wealthy woman in your life, regardless of what your bank account says? Because it's about the energy first. And when you can hone in on the energy, the money just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming and coming, because you know your worth, you know your standards, you know your value. It becomes normal. When we see these things outside of us and we're like, oh, that's so unattainable, or oh, that's like icky or whatever, it's because we haven't normalized it. We haven't said, oh yeah, that's okay. When you learn to be unconditional in the way that you're living, which we also talk about inside of Managing the Mind, you no longer have to decide like whether something is right or wrong. You're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I want that, I can get that. And when things are shown to you that you don't like or don't want, you're just like, oh, pivot. Because you know your worth and your value, you know how valuable your focus is. Because your focus creates everything. Where you focus is what you create. So if you're focused on being broke, you're going to stay broke. If you're focused on not having enough money, you're going to stay not having enough money. If you're focused on always having enough, guess what? You're always going to have enough. Regardless if it's reflected to you in money. But it will be if you cultivate a strong relationship with money. With yourself, primarily. Everything in this life is a relationship. And you are the one who gets to decide what your relationship with things is like. I'm going to leave you with this little analogy. So in the world of quantum physics, there's this thing called the string theory. And basically it just says that we all live in a web and we're connected to every single thing by way of a string. And you can't get rid of these strings, right? So there's no cord cutting here. All you can do is change the way you think about the thing or change the way you perceive the thing, and then that thing shifts. This is how quantum entanglement theory is also like based on this as well. So when you decide that your relationship with money is better, is good, is fantastic, is magnetic, is whatever you want it to be, if you decide that your relationship with yourself is magnificent, that you know your value, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start to see those shifts. And I'm not saying it won't be easy. I'm not saying it will be easy. It might be uncomfortable, and sometimes uncomfortability is not easy for some people. Sometimes it's easier to stay small in the identity that you're living in. And that's likely why you are where you are right now. Which isn't a good thing, isn't a bad thing, it's just the truth. If you want to change, if you want to continue evolving, you have to change the way you see things. You have to change your perception of things. And you have to also recognize that your perception is based on your own inherent worth and what you feel like you are allowed to think about things. Even the worst possible thing ever could be amazing for someone. So when you sit and you decide, oh, this is good and this is bad, you're creating an opportunity for yourself to show you, your subconscious mind to show you that nothing is good or bad, that everything has a place. When you decide this is for me, this is not for me, then your subconscious mind shows you what's for you because it gets that internal validation. You get to have what you want, but you got to stop classifying things as good and bad. You got to stop living in the world of duality and start living in the world of infinite possibility. And you do that by knowing who you are, by knowing your worth, by knowing your value, and by setting the standard for your life. If you want to be a wealthy woman, you can be a wealthy woman. How would that wealthy woman act? Who would she be? What energy would she embody? Would she really give a fuck about any of the noise? I just sent the prompts in the chat. I'm not going to read all of them, but I do want to touch on a few. How do you want money to work for you? Because money does work for you. Money's your bitch, bruh. How do you want it to work for you? Do you want it to be something that constantly shows you don't have enough? Or do you want it to show you that you constantly have more than enough? Are you okay with letting go of money? Because when you have more than enough, you're not afraid of letting go of it. Even if you seemingly would spend all of your money, you'd be like, oh, okay, it's fine, I'll just get more. Because you know that you can just create more. When you get to a level of like actually knowing your worth and your value, then you can start to play with like, oh, how are the ways that I want money to work for me? And then you can go into like, oh, I want this kind of an account and this kind of an account, and I want to do these investments and get more specific, right? Envision yourself having this whole life with money, because you get to have it. Whatever you decide right now and you believe in, that's what you're going to see. So what are some of the things that you would do with money? Would you invest